Madeline Cross was already smiling when I walked toward her table. That was how certain everyone was. Not just her. Everyone. 3 guys had tried to ask her to prom that week. One got turned down outside chemistry. Another left a ridiculous bouquet in her locker. The third apparently recruited half the baseball team to hold up signs in the parking lot. Madeline had said no to all of them. So when I crossed the cafeteria holding a folded invitation card, half the room noticed. Noah, sitting 2 tables away, actually gave me a thumbs up. Someone whispered, "Mercer's finally doing it." And then I remembered dying. Not the dramatic part. Not a hospital room. Not some final speech about regret. What came back first was a hotel room at 31, my suit jacket hanging over a chair while I stared at an email confirming another promotion I had worked 6 years to get. Everyone congratulated me. My parents were proud. My colleagues said I had made it. I remember sitting there thinking, do I even want this? That question had followed me for years. It started much earlier than I realized. It started here. 17 years old. Senior year. Prom invitation in my hand. Walking toward the girl every boy wanted because getting her to say yes felt like winning something. Madeline looked up at me. Her friends went quiet. She had always been beautiful in the effortless way that made people assume she knew exactly what effect she had. Dark blonde hair, bright eyes, perfect posture, the kind of social confidence that made teachers trust her and students want to sit near her. She wasn't cruel. That mattered. In my first life, she had said yes to prom. We had a great night. At least, that was what everybody told me. The photos looked perfect. My friends were impressed. People talked about us for weeks. And I spent years remembering that night as proof that I knew how to make good choices. I stopped in front of her table. Madeline glanced at the card. Then at me. Caleb? I looked down at the front. I had written, prom? Nothing creative. Nothing dramatic. Just the exact card I remembered making the night before. Madeline smiled. I could already hear the answer from my first life. Yes. My fingers tightened around the card. Then I folded it in half. Her smile faded. Sorry. The table went still. Madeline blinked. For what? This isn't for you. Silence. Not normal cafeteria silence. The kind where everyone nearby suddenly becomes extremely interested in pretending they aren't listening. Madeline stared at me. I almost felt bad. Actually, I did feel bad. She had done nothing wrong. This wasn't some revenge fantasy. I wasn't rejecting her because she had ruined my life. She hadn't. I had done most of that myself. I thought. She stopped. I know. I kept my voice low. I'm sorry. That was my mistake. Her expression changed from surprise to something sharper. Not anger. Embarrassment. I hated that. So I added, you didn't do anything. I just realized I was about to ask for the wrong reason. Madeline studied me. What reason? Half the cafeteria was still listening. I glanced around. That's probably not a conversation for here. She followed my eyes and understood. Madeline was socially smart enough to know when not to force someone into a public explanation. She nodded once. Okay. That somehow made me feel worse. I turned away. Noah's mouth was open. I walked past him. He grabbed my sleeve. What are you doing? I'll explain later. You just rejected Madeline Cross. Yes. You've been talking about asking her for 2 months. I know. She was going to say yes. I know. Noah stared at me like I had developed a neurological condition. Then where are you going? I looked toward the side exit beside the administrative wing. To ask someone else. His face went blank. What? I kept walking. Behind me, he hissed, Caleb, who? I didn't answer. Because I already knew exactly where she would be. Rory Keene was sitting on the concrete ledge outside the administrative office with a stack of worksheets on her lap and one boot pressed against the brick wall. She wasn't supposed to be attending classes that week. Technically, she was suspended. The school had allowed her back for 40 minutes to collect assignments and meet with the counselor handling her return plan. She wore a faded brown leather jacket over her school shirt even though jackets weren't technically allowed indoors. The left sleeve had been patched with a darker piece of leather. Her dark hair was tied badly at the back of her head with what looked like an elastic band stolen from a package of broccoli. She looked exactly the way I remembered. Not secretly delicate. Not tragically misunderstood. Rory Keene looked like someone who had spent 17 years deciding rules were usually poorly written suggestions. She saw me approaching and frowned. If this is about the vending machine, I already told Coleman I'm not paying for it. I stopped. What? The vending machine. I know what a vending machine is. Good. Then we're making progress. I almost laughed. There she was. In my first life, I barely spoke to Rory before graduation. I knew the same things everyone knew. She skipped assemblies, argued with teachers, got caught on the football field after hours, once dismantled a broken vending machine because, according to her, it was making a noise that meant something inside was loose. That earned her 3 days of detention. The argument with Vice Principal Coleman earned her suspension. She had torn the suspension notice in half before he finished explaining it. So no, Rory was not an innocent victim of rumors. She was a pain in the ass. She was also the person whose voice came back to me more clearly than Madeline's prom acceptance. A week after prom in my first life, I had seen Rory sitting on the hood of an old car in the student lot. She had been banned from graduation events after another disciplinary problem. She asked me one question. Was prom actually fun? I had answered. Everyone said it was amazing. Rory stared at me for a second and said, "That's not what I asked." At 17, I thought she was being rude. At 31, sitting alone in that hotel room with the promotion everyone said I should want, I finally understood her. Now I was standing in front of her again. 10 years early. Rory looked at the card in my hand, then at my face. What? I took a breath. Go to prom with me. She stared. Nothing moved for about 5 seconds. Then she looked behind me. I glanced back too. Nobody. She looked at me again. Did you hit your head? No. Are you concussed? No. Did someone dare you? No. She lowered the worksheets. Then this is worse. I laughed. I'm serious. That's the part I'm worried about. I held out the card. Rory didn't take it. Instead, she looked toward the cafeteria windows. You just walked away from Madeline Cross. I froze slightly. You saw that? Half the building saw that. Right. She leaned back against the wall. So let me understand this. I waited. You went into lunch planning to ask the girl every guy here wants. Yes. You changed your mind in front of her. Yes. Then immediately walked over to the girl who is currently suspended. When she said it that way, it sounded worse. Yes. Rory nodded slowly. Absolutely not. I blinked. What? No. I had expected sarcasm, suspicion, maybe laughter, not immediate rejection. You're saying no? Yes. Why? Because you don't know me. That shut me up. She pointed toward the cafeteria. And because whatever that was in there has nothing to do with me. It doesn't. Really? Yes. Rory narrowed her eyes. Then why me? There it was. The question I should have been prepared for. I knew things about her from my first life. Tiny things. That she hated artificial grape flavor. That she eventually worked in a restoration shop for several years. That she once told me at a class reunion. No. Stop. That was exactly the problem. Those memories belonged to a future Rory who did not know me. I couldn't use them like evidence that we were supposed to happen. I don't have a good answer yet. Her eyebrows rose. That is the worst prom invitation I've ever heard. Probably. You usually this bad? No. Great. So I'm getting special treatment. I smiled despite myself. Rory didn't. Then she said, did you choose me because rejecting Madeline wasn't dramatic enough? That hit exactly where it needed to. No. You sure? Yes. Because if this is some new version of you trying to prove you don't care what people think, find another prop. I went still. Rory picked up her worksheets again. There was no hurt in her voice. No insecurity. Just anger at the possibility that I had turned her into a symbol. And the worst part was, she was closer to the truth than I wanted to admit. I had come here because I remembered her. Because I remembered that question. Because in another life, I eventually realized how much I had missed by choosing what everyone else admired. But Rory was right. That didn't mean she owed me a role in my second chance. I lowered the card. Fair. She looked up. What? You're right. That seemed to bother her more than if I argued. I am? Yeah. You're leaving? Yes. Rory stared at me suspiciously. You're not going to keep asking? No. That's weird. I'm trying something new. She looked at the invitation in my hand. Then at me. For what it's worth. What? Madeline didn't deserve that. I know. Rory's expression changed slightly. Not softer. Just less amused. You should probably tell her that privately. I will. Good. I nodded. Then started walking away. Caleb. I stopped. That surprised me. Rory almost never used my name. At least, not in the life I remembered. I turned. She pointed at the card. You should probably throw that away. I looked at it. Why? Because asking two girls with the same card is cheap. I laughed. That is not what happened. That card has terrible energy now. Good to know. I tore it in half and dropped it into the recycling bin beside the office. Rory watched, then gave me the smallest hint of a smile. I left before I could make the situation worse. Madeline found me after sixth period. I was at my locker when she stopped beside me. No friends. No audience. Good. You said we should talk somewhere else. I closed the locker. Yeah. She folded her arms. Okay. Talk. I had forgotten how direct Madeline could be when she wasn't performing social ease for everyone around her. I'm sorry. You said that already. I mean for doing it publicly. She studied me. I thought you were going to ask me. I was. And you changed your mind in 6 seconds? Pretty much. That's reassuring. I know it isn't. Madeline looked away. A few students passed us. Then she asked, was it Rory? No. Her eyes came back to mine. No? I asked Rory after. Madeline's eyebrows rose. That is somehow worse. I'm having a very strong day. Against her will, she almost smiled. Then she became serious again. Why? I leaned against the locker. Because I realized I was asking you for a stupid reason. What reason? Because everyone wanted you. Madeline stared. I continued before she could misunderstand. That isn't your fault. No. I know. And you didn't like me? I did. Did? That was difficult. I think I liked what asking you meant. Her face changed. Not angry. Thinking. That you won? I winced. Basically. Madeline looked almost impressed by how bad the answer was. Wow. I know. You really are having a strong day. I deserve that. She exhaled. Then surprised me. Thank you for telling me. I looked at her. You're not mad? I'm embarrassed. Fair. And a little mad. Also fair. But I'd rather you figure that out before prom than afterward. That was Madeline. This was exactly why she couldn't become the villain of this story. She was good. Just not the answer to a question I should have been asking. Before she left, she paused. Caleb? Yeah? Don't use Rory to prove something. I stared at her. You too? Madeline smiled faintly. She'll make your life miserable. Helpful. I'm serious. So am I. She looked toward the administrative wing. Then back at me. Then make sure you actually know why. She walked away. 2 girls in one day had told me almost the same thing. My 31-year-old ego was taking a beating. Probably deserved. After school, I went to the culinary classroom. That was the second choice I remembered regretting. The door smelled like roasted garlic and industrial cleaner. Chef Elena Ruiz, who ran Briarwood's food program, stood behind the demonstration counter sorting application folders. She looked up. Mercer. Hey. You changed your mind? That sentence followed me everywhere today. About what? The youth culinary apprenticeship. My stomach tightened. I had forgotten the deadline was this week. In my first life, Chef Ruiz encouraged me to apply. I didn't. My father thought culinary school was risky. My guidance counselor pointed out that my grades could get me into better-ranked universities. I told myself cooking could stay a hobby. At 31, I knew exactly how dangerous the phrase stay a hobby could become. I want to apply. Chef Ruiz smiled. Good. She handed me a packet. It's competitive. I know. They want a practical portfolio. I can do that. And one supervised live service. I stopped. Live service? Real guests. Real budget. Real timing. Minimum 75 portions. I scanned the requirements. Menu development. Food safety. Costing. Service management. Reflection. This was not a cooking contest. Good. I had no interest in another trophy. What school events qualify? Chef Ruiz reached for a calendar. Spring fundraiser is assigned. Faculty dinner is already taken. She moved her finger down, then stopped. Prom late night food station. I stared at her. Prom. Usually the caterer handles it, but the school cut the add-on this year. Of course they did. Chef Ruiz continued. We still need someone to design and run it. Simple hot food for the last hour. Probably 120 students. That was more than enough. My eyes moved back to the application packet. One live service. One real opportunity. And it happened to be prom. I almost laughed. Apparently I was not allowed to avoid this event. I'll do it. Chef Ruiz raised an eyebrow. You haven't heard the budget. How bad? She told me. I stared at her. That's not a budget. That's why nobody volunteered. I looked at the number again. Cheap ingredients. High volume. Fast service. Actually, interesting. What equipment? School kitchen access. 2 warming units near the gym. Limited refrigeration at service. Volunteers? You can request 4. I was already thinking. Braised chicken sliders were too messy. Grilled cheese held badly. Chili could work, but prom clothes plus chili seemed like a crime. Maybe crisp potato tacos. Maybe baked pasta cups. Something cheap. Hot. Fast. Chef Ruiz watched my face. You're doing menu math already. Maybe. She smiled. Then take the packet. I did. For the first time all day, I felt completely certain. Not because everyone would approve. Actually, my father probably wouldn't. But I wanted this. That was enough to start. Then Chef Ruiz handed me another page. Volunteer assignments. I glanced down. 4 student names had already been added from disciplinary service hours. My eyes stopped on the second one. Rory Keene, 12 remaining service hours. I stared at it. Chef Ruiz noticed. Problem? No. Know her? A little. She comes back from suspension Monday. Counselor assigned her to event logistics. Of course. I spent half the day learning I couldn't make Rory part of my second chance just because I wanted a different life. Now the school had assigned her directly to my kitchen. Chef Ruiz tapped the sheet. Mercer? Yeah. You sure? I looked at Rory's name, then at the culinary application in my hand. This time, the decision was easy. She's there to finish service hours. Yes. And I'm there to run food. Yes. Then we keep it that way. Chef Ruiz gave me a look that suggested she had absolutely no idea what I was talking about. That was the plan. Right. I folded the sheet. Prom was 3 weeks away. Rory had already rejected me. Madeline had told me not to turn her into a symbol. And I had just signed myself up to spend 12 hours in a kitchen with the girl who thought my prom invitation had terrible energy. For the first time since waking up 17 again, I smiled without having to remind myself why I was making a different choice. This one wasn't about fixing the past. I genuinely wanted to see what happened next. Rory came back from suspension on Monday morning. The school treated it like a minor weather event. Nothing official. Just whispers. Students noticed when she walked through the front entrance in the same patched leather jacket, carrying a stack of makeup work under one arm and looking completely uninterested in whether anyone was watching. I saw her from across the hallway. She saw me too. For a second, neither of us moved. Then Rory pointed at me. Not dramatically. Just one finger. You. I looked behind myself. No one else here? You're hilarious. She walked over. You didn't tell me. Tell you what? She held up a folded service hours sheet. At the top, Prom Food Logistics, Student Service Assignment. I tried not to smile. I found out Friday. And what? You're running it. Yes. You asked me to prom, I said no, and now I'm assigned to work your food station. When you say it like that, it sounds suspicious. It is suspicious. I don't control disciplinary service hours. You sure? Yes. Because if this is your second attempt. It isn't. Rory stopped. I kept my voice even. You don't owe me a date because you have school service hours. She studied my face. And you're not going to keep asking? No. That's annoyingly reasonable. I've heard worse. She looked down at the sheet again. What exactly am I doing? Depends what you can do. Dangerous question. I'm serious. So am I. She thought for a second. I can carry things. Useful. I can use a knife. Less reassuring. I can follow instructions when they aren't stupid. That sounds subjective. They usually are. I laughed. Rory's expression softened for half a second. Then she said, You're weird this week. Apparently. Everyone says that. Good to know my reputation is developing. She folded the sheet and put it in her jacket pocket. When do I start? Wednesday. 3:30. Culinary room. She nodded. Then walked away. After 6 steps, she turned. Caleb. Yeah? If you make me wear one of those stupid chef hats, I'm leaving. I smiled. Noted. By Wednesday afternoon, I had a menu problem. The budget was worse than I remembered. Chef Ruiz gave me 120 portions for volunteers, 2 warming units, and an amount of money that seemed personally insulting. I had spent 2 nights costing ingredients. Every option had a flaw. Mini burgers were too expensive. Pasta cups were cheap but awkward in formal clothes. Quesadillas held badly. Loaded potatoes worked on cost but slowed service. Chef Ruiz watched me erase another menu. You're overthinking. I'm trying not to serve garbage. There is a difference between simple and bad. I know. Do you? I looked at the page. Maybe not. That was another habit from my first life. If something mattered, I made it complicated. More features. More options. More proof that I had worked hard. At 31, I had built presentations nobody needed, stayed late for decisions nobody asked me to make, and treated complexity like evidence of value. Apparently I could do the same thing with prom food. Chef Ruiz tapped the cost sheet. What do you actually like cooking? I looked at her. That isn't the question. It is now. I thought. Breakfast food. She waited. That's your answer? Mostly. Why? It's cheap. People understand it. You can make basic ingredients taste good. Chef Ruiz nodded. So? I stared at the menu. Then it clicked. Late night breakfast. Prom ended after 10. Students would have spent hours dancing. Hot breakfast sandwiches. Crispy potatoes. Maybe one vegetarian option. Cheap. Fast. Actually good. I started writing. Chef Ruiz smiled. There he is. I looked up. Who? The kid applying because he likes cooking instead of the kid trying to impress a committee. That landed harder than she knew. Before I could answer, the kitchen door opened. Rory walked in. She was 7 minutes late. Chef Ruiz checked the clock. Rory saw her. Bus. Chef Ruiz said nothing. Rory added, that's not an excuse. I'll stay 7 minutes. I looked at her. That surprised me. Rory noticed. What? Nothing. You made a face. I didn't. You did. Chef Ruiz handed her an apron. Rory looked at it like it had insulted her family. No hat? No hat, I said. She pointed at me. You remembered. I'm trying to preserve staff retention. Rory put on the apron. Smart. The first prep session was mostly testing. I gave each volunteer a station. One handled potatoes. One handled portioning. One handled equipment setup. Rory got sauce. She looked offended. You put me on sauce? Yes. Why? Because it's hard to injure a sauce. She stared. I don't know whether that was an insult. It was risk management. Chef Ruiz laughed from the other side of the room. Rory tied her hair back tighter. Fine. The sauce was supposed to be simple. Greek yogurt, mustard, lemon, herbs, salt. Rory measured everything except the salt. I saw it too late. She shook the container directly over the bowl. A lot came out. I froze. She froze. We looked at each other. That was too much, I said. Rory tasted it. Her face changed immediately. Wow. Yeah. That tastes like seawater with ambition. I tried it. She was right. One of the volunteers laughed. Rory looked toward the trash. Fine. I'll remake it. Don't. She stopped. It's ruined. No. It has enough salt to preserve a body. We can fix it. She looked skeptical. I grabbed another bowl. Double the unsalted base. More acid. Add chopped herbs. Then split the batch. Rory watched. That actually works? It should. Should? You want certainty, don't cook. She raised an eyebrow. Good slogan. We adjusted. Tasted again. Still salty. More yogurt. More lemon. Another taste. Better. Rory took the spoon. Her expression changed. Huh. What? It's actually good. Try not to sound so shocked. I watched you rescue yogurt from a salt crime. I'm allowed to be impressed. I handed her the next bowl. Do it again. She stared. What? Second batch. You're putting me back on sauce? Yes. I just messed up the first one. And most people would switch me. Why? Because I messed it up. I leaned against the counter. Now you know what too much salt tastes like. Rory looked at me. I continued. Measure it this time. For once, she had no comeback. She took the salt spoon. Measured carefully. Second batch came out right. She tasted it. Then slid the bowl toward me. I tasted. Good. That's all? What do you want? A medal? Maybe. You're doing service hours. That's cruel. I smiled. And she smiled back. Not big. Not soft. Just real. An hour later, things got less fun. Vice Principal Coleman came into the kitchen. Rory's entire posture changed. Not fear. Defense. Immediate. Coleman looked at the prep log. Keen. She kept chopping herbs. Coleman. Chef Ruiz gave her a warning look. Rory sighed. Vice Principal Coleman. Better. He checked the service hour sheet. You were 7 minutes late. I'm staying 7 minutes. That isn't how scheduled service works. Rory put the knife down. It's literally 7 minutes. That isn't the point. There's always a point with you. I saw it happen. The shift. Rory stopped reacting to the actual issue and started reacting to him. Coleman's tone got sharper. You're here because you have a disciplinary obligation. I know why I'm here. Then act like it. Chef Ruiz stepped closer. Rory. But Rory was already angry. I'm doing the work. You arrived late. Because the bus was late. You could have taken an earlier one. I could also own a helicopter. Enough. Rory pulled off one glove. I knew where this was going. In my first life, I would have stayed out of it. Not my problem. Now I also knew something else. Rory hated being controlled so much that sometimes she gave people exactly the evidence they expected. Coleman pointed toward the service sheet. One more issue and I'll recommend extending your hours. Rory laughed once. Of course you will. Then she reached for the apron knot. I stopped chopping. Don't. Both of them looked at me. Rory's eyes narrowed. Excuse me? You're about to leave. So? You agreed to do the hours. Her face hardened. Whose side are you on? There it was. Exactly the question. I put the knife down. Yours. She laughed without humor. Doesn't sound like it. That's because I'm not going to tell you every stupid decision is justified just because somebody annoyed you first. The room went silent. Chef Ruiz looked at me. Coleman looked almost offended on Rory's behalf. Rory stared. You don't know anything about this. You're right. I kept my voice calm. I don't know everything between you and Coleman. Then stay out of it. I will. I pointed at the prep station. But you told the school you'd finish these hours. That part is yours. Her jaw tightened. Maybe I don't care. I think you do. Why? Because you were 7 minutes late and immediately offered to stay 7. That stopped her. I continued. You care until somebody makes you angry enough to pretend you don't. Her expression changed. That one landed. Coleman started to speak. Chef Ruiz cut him off. I think we've handled attendance. He looked at her. She smiled pleasantly. Rory will stay 7 minutes. Coleman clearly wanted the final word. For once, he decided not to take it. Fine. He left. The kitchen door closed. Rory turned toward me. Don't do that again. What? Analyze me. I wasn't. You were. Fine. She untied the apron. I thought she was leaving. Instead, she retied it tighter. Then picked up the herbs. You're still annoying. I know. And I'm not saying you were right. Okay. You look like you think you were right. I usually look like this. Rory chopped harder than necessary. But she stayed. 7 extra minutes. Exactly. At 5:37, we walked out together. Not intentionally. Everyone else had already left, and our buses went toward the same parking lot. Rory shoved her hands into her jacket pockets. You always talk to people like that? Like what? Like you're not afraid they'll hate you afterward. I thought about it. No. What changed? That question again. I couldn't tell her the truth. So I gave her part of it. I got tired of saying whatever kept things easy. Rory glanced at me. That sounds exhausting. It was. We reached the parking lot. She stopped beside an old blue sedan. The hood had mismatched paint. You drive that? My aunt does. I borrow it. It looks like it survived combat. It did. With what? Previous owners. I smiled. She unlocked the door, then paused. Caleb. Yeah? The prom thing. My stomach tightened slightly. I said I'm not asking again. I know. She leaned against the door. Why did you ask me? I could have repeated the same bad answer. I didn't. Because I remembered something you said. Her brow furrowed. When? A long time ago. That's vague. I know. What did I say? I looked at her. You asked whether something was actually fun. She stared at me. That sounds like me. It does. And that made you ask me to prom? Partly. That still makes no sense. I'm working on it. Rory shook her head. Terrible pitch. I know. She opened the car door. Then she said, at least you stopped pretending you had a good answer. I smiled. Progress? Marginal. She got in. I started toward my own car. Then Rory called through the open window. Also. I turned. The sauce was good. That was mostly because I fixed it. She stared at me. I grinned. Her eyes narrowed. Prom answer stays no. Understood. She drove away. I stood there smiling anyway. Not because I thought I had changed her mind. I hadn't. But for the first time, Rory Keane had stayed in a room after someone gave her a reason to walk out. And I had spent an afternoon cooking something I actually wanted to cook. Those were small choices. In my first life, I would have overlooked both. This time, I knew better. Small choices were usually where a different life started. By the second week of prom prep, Rory had stopped treating the culinary room like a punishment. She still complained about the apron. She still called the school-issued knives blunt metal suggestions. And she still arrived exactly on time, which I suspected was partly because she refused to give Vice Principal Coleman another reason to talk to her. But she worked. Really worked. That afternoon, I handed her a tray of potatoes and said, "quarter-inch dice." Rory looked at the tray, then at me. You say things like I know what that means. I picked up one potato and cut it. This size. She examined the piece. That's incredibly specific. That's cooking. I thought cooking was instinct. People say that after they learn the measurements. Rory rolled her eyes and started cutting. Her first pieces were too big. I pushed them back. Again. Dictator. Consistent cooking. Same thing with better branding. 10 minutes later, every piece was nearly identical. I noticed. I didn't say anything. Rory noticed me noticing. Go ahead. What? Say it. Say what? That I'm improving. You are. She waited. That's it? You complain when I criticize you and complain when I compliment you. I like range. I laughed and turned back to the griddle. The late-night breakfast menu had finally become real. Toasted egg and cheese sandwiches, crispy seasoned potatoes, one vegetarian version, and a sharp herb sauce Rory had now made correctly 4 times in a row. Cheap ingredients. Fast service. Nothing designed to impress a judge. That was the strange part. The less I tried to make the menu look impressive, the more I liked it. Chef Ruiz liked it too. Comfort food, she said, tasting the potatoes. Rory leaned against the counter. That sounds like something adults say when food isn't fancy. Chef Ruiz pointed a spoon at her. That attitude is why you're washing sheet pans later. Rory looked at me. Abuse of authority. Document it. She almost smiled. Then the culinary room door opened. Madeline walked in. Rory's expression changed immediately. Not hostile. Alert. Madeline was carrying a clipboard from the prom committee. Chef Ruiz said I could check the food station layout. Chef Ruiz nodded toward me. Caleb's running it. Madeline turned. For half a second, the cafeteria moment came back between us. Then she handled it exactly the way I expected her to. Professionally. Okay. I need service with, electrical access, and your expected line size. I showed her the layout. She studied it. Rory kept cutting potatoes. Madeline glanced over. Hi, Rory. Rory looked up. Hi. No tension. No dramatic rivalry. I was almost disappointed by how normal it was. Madeline pointed to the gym map. If you put service here, people leaving the dance floor will collide with the photo line. She's right, Rory said. Madeline looked at her. Rory pointed with the knife. Move food 10 feet toward the side doors. I looked at the diagram. That puts us closer to the loading entrance. Which means fewer trips from the kitchen, Rory said. Madeline nodded. And it keeps the center aisle open. I stared at both of them. What? Rory frowned. You look confused. I think I was expecting this to be more difficult. Madeline understood first. Her eyes narrowed. You thought we were going to fight? No. Yes, you did. Rory looked between us. Then at me. Were you hoping we'd fight over you? Absolutely not. Madeline laughed. Rory shook her head. Disappointing. I looked at her. She was smiling. Actually smiling. That was new. Madeline finished the layout notes and handed the clipboard back. Before leaving, she stopped beside me. Can I talk to you for a second? Rory immediately said, I can't hear anything over these potatoes. Madeline looked at the silent cutting board. I closed my eyes. Rory. What? You're terrible. Busy. Madeline was trying not to laugh. We stepped into the hallway. What's up? She folded her arms. You're actually doing this. The food station? No. Culinary. I looked at her. Yeah. You never talked about it before. I didn't talk about a lot of things. Madeline studied me for a moment, then said, You seem different when you're in there. How? Less like you're waiting to see if someone approves. That hit uncomfortably close. I leaned against the wall. You and Rory are developing an annoying habit. What? Pointing things out. Madeline smiled. Then her expression became serious. Can I ask you something? Sure. Are you asking Rory to prom because you actually like her? I didn't answer immediately. Madeline continued. Or because choosing the girl nobody expects makes you feel like you're finally making your own decisions? There it was. Almost exactly what Rory had accused me of. Again. Two different people. Same question. I hated when that happened. I don't know yet. Madeline nodded. That's better than pretending. You're not supposed to agree with her. With Rory? Yes. I'm not on a team, Caleb. Apparently everyone is against me. That sounds difficult. I smiled. She started to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, I don't think Rory is worried you'll embarrass her. What do you think she's worried about? Madeline looked through the classroom window. Rory was arguing with Chef Ruiz about whether a slightly dented sheet pan still counted as usable. She doesn't want to be somebody's rebellion. Then Madeline left. I stayed in the hallway for a moment, because that was exactly right. And I needed to make sure I wasn't doing that. When I went back inside, Rory didn't ask what Madeline said. She just shoved a potato piece toward me. Too big? I checked it. Perfect. She looked suspicious. Really? Really. Don't become nice. It's unsettling. I'll recover. We worked another hour. Near the end, Chef Ruiz called me over. She had the apprenticeship scoring sheet open. Your menu is approved. My chest lifted. Really? Yes. Now you need your service plan. I nodded. Already started. And your personal dish. I stopped. My what? She pointed to the application requirement. I had somehow missed one line. Applicant must submit one dish representing personal culinary direction. I read it twice. That wasn't on the first page. It was on page 4. I hate page 4. Chef Ruiz smiled. Prom service proves you can run a kitchen. This proves you know what you want to cook. That should have been easy. It wasn't. I had spent days designing food around price, speed, crowd size, and evaluation criteria. Now somebody was asking what I wanted. Just me. I stared at the blank box. Rory came over. What happened? I need one personal dish for the apprenticeship. So make one. I know. What are you making? I don't know. She looked genuinely confused. You're the cook. Helpful. What scores well? The answer came automatically. Probably something technical. Handmade pasta. Maybe a composed. Rory interrupted. I didn't ask what scores well. I stopped. She looked at me. What do you actually want to cook? My stomach tightened. There it was. The same question. The exact shape of the question she had asked me in another life. Was prom actually fun? Everyone said it was amazing. That's not what I asked. I stared at her for a second too long. Rory frowned. What? Nothing. That was definitely something. I looked at the ingredient shelves. Then I thought about Sunday mornings when I was 10. My mother sleeping late. My father reading the paper. Me standing on a chair at the stove making cinnamon French toast with too much butter because it was the first thing I learned to cook without help. Nothing impressive. Nothing strategic. Just something I loved. French toast. Rory blinked. That's it? With brown butter apples. She considered it. That sounds good. It's not complicated. So? I looked at her. She shrugged. You're doing that thing. What thing? Turning something you like into an exam. That annoyed me because it was true. I picked up the application sheet. Fine. French toast. Rory nodded. Good. You sound like Chef Ruiz. That's offensive. Chef Ruiz called from across the kitchen. I heard that. Rory smiled. Then she glanced at the clock. Her service hours were finished for the day. She untied her apron. Before leaving, she stopped beside my station. Caleb. Yeah? The prom invitation. I looked up. I'm not asking again. I know. She hesitated. That alone caught my attention. Then she said, if you figure out why you asked me, tell me. I stared at her. That sounds almost like you're reconsidering. It isn't. Almost. Do not ruin this. I smiled. Fine. Rory picked up her jacket. Then she added, and if your answer is because everyone else wouldn't, I'm still saying no. She walked out. I watched the door close. For the first time, I realized her rejection had never really been about prom. She wanted to know whether I was choosing her, or just choosing against everyone else. And honestly, I still needed to know too. The first time Rory missed a prep session, I assumed she was suspended again. That probably said something bad about both of us. At 3:35 on Friday, her station was empty. The other volunteers were already portioning potatoes, and Chef Ruiz had started checking refrigerator temperatures. I looked at the clock again. Stop! I turned. Chef Ruiz was watching me. What? You've checked the door 6 times. I'm waiting for someone. I know. She has service hours. I also know. I picked up the prep sheet. She's 10 minutes late. Chef Ruiz smiled faintly. You sound like Coleman. That shut me up. At 3:42, Rory finally came through the door carrying a broken bicycle wheel under one arm. I stared. She stared back. What? You brought a wheel into a kitchen. I'm aware. Why? Because if I left it outside, somebody would steal it. Chef Ruiz pointed toward the storage room. Not near food. Rory disappeared for 30 seconds, returned without the wheel, washed her hands, tied on an apron, and walked straight to her station. I'm 17 minutes late, she said. You counting? Yes. You planning to stay 17? Yes. I smiled before I could stop myself. Rory noticed. Don't. What? Look pleased. I'm not. You are. She started chopping herbs. I handed her the service log. Sign in. She did. Then I noticed grease along the side of her wrist. What happened? Bike. The wheel? Mrs. Danner's. I frowned. The crossing guard? Rory nodded. She rides to school. Bent rim. She was going to push it home. So you fixed it? I'm trying to. There was no dramatic explanation. No secret act of charity she wanted credit for. She had simply seen something broken and picked it up. That was very Rory. Where'd you learn? My uncle repairs old bikes. I nodded toward the storage room. You're going back after this? Yes. Need help? She gave me a suspicious look. With a bicycle? People can have multiple skills. Can you true a wheel? No. Then no. Fair. We went back to work. That afternoon should have been easy. The menu was finalized, quantities were set, and we were mostly testing service speed. Then Coleman walked in with Rory's updated discipline sheet. Her shoulders tightened before he said a word. Keen, I need your signature. She wiped her hands and took the form. I saw her eyes move down the page. Then stop. What is this? Additional service hours. Chef Ruiz looked over. Additional? Coleman nodded. For the missed advisory meeting Tuesday. Rory's face changed instantly. I didn't miss it. You weren't present. Because Ms. Harlow moved it. Coleman checked the paper. I have Tuesday at 2:30. She emailed me at noon and changed it to Wednesday. Do you have the email? Rory laughed once. So now I need evidence that your office changed its own meeting? I could already hear the fuse burning. Coleman's jaw tightened. Rory. No. You keep doing this. Chef Ruiz stepped closer, but Rory was already pulling off one glove. You make a mistake, then somehow I'm the one who has to prove it. Watch your tone. There it is. I set down the tray I was carrying. Rory. She looked at me. I didn't tell her to calm down. That phrase had probably never helped anyone in human history. Do you have the email? She stared at me like I had betrayed her. Then pulled out her phone. 30 seconds later, she found it. Meeting moved to Wednesday, 2:30 p.m. Coleman read the message. His expression changed. That wasn't updated in the discipline system. Rory folded her arms. So remove the hours. He hesitated. Not because he disagreed. Because he hated being corrected in front of students. Finally he crossed out the addition and initialed the change. I'll fix the record. Rory took the form back. That would be nice. He gave her a warning look. She almost added something. I saw it. So did she. Then Rory looked down at the form instead. Thank you. Coleman blinked. So did I. He left. The door closed. Rory exhaled through her nose. You're staring. You said thank you. He fixed it. You still hate him. Yes. Progress. Don't become unbearable. Too late. She returned to the herbs. That moment stayed with me because Rory had done something I hadn't expected. She hadn't become obedient. She hadn't decided Coleman was right. She had simply stopped confusing winning the argument with burning the room down afterward. That was different. So was I. A month earlier, I probably would have stepped between them and tried to solve everything for her. Now I had asked one question, then let her handle the rest. Maybe that was what choosing someone really looked like. Not taking over their battles. Not pretending every choice they made was right. Just respecting them enough to expect better. After prep, I followed Rory to the bike rack. Not because she asked. Because I was curious. Mrs. Danner's bicycle was upside down beside the wall. Rory had already removed the damaged wheel. She sat on the pavement with a spoke wrench. You said you couldn't help. I can hold things. That's barely a skill. I'm excellent at it. She handed me the wheel. Then hold. For 20 minutes, she adjusted spokes while I rotated the rim. It was slow, annoyingly precise. Every few turns, she stopped and checked alignment. You're patient with this. Rory looked at me. What's that supposed to mean? You're not patient with anything else. I'm patient with things that respond to logic. People don't? Rarely. I laughed. Then I noticed something. You could probably do restoration work. She shrugged. Maybe. You ever thought about it? My counselor says I should pick something with better long-term prospects. There it was. Different person. Same sentence. I looked at her. What do you want? Rory stopped turning the wrench. That sounded suspiciously serious. I'm asking. She looked back at the wheel. I like old things. Why? Because nobody expects them to be perfect. That answer surprised me. Rory continued. You can see where something got damaged. You fix what matters. You leave some scratches. She tightened another spoke. People get weird when you try that with them. I smiled slightly. Probably because people don't like being called damaged. People are exhausting. Agreed. She checked the rim again. This time it spun almost perfectly straight. Rory smiled. Not at me. At the wheel. That might have been the first time I understood what drew me toward her in this life. Not the suspension. Not the rebellion. Not because she was the opposite of Madeline. Rory liked things that had actually lived. She didn't need everything polished into something impressive before she thought it had value. I had spent half my life doing exactly that to myself. The following Monday, Madeline caught me outside chemistry. You know Rory's service hours end next week. I know. And prom is the Friday after. I also know. Madeline watched me. So what? Are you going to ask again? No. She looked surprised. You wanted her to go. I still do. Then why not ask? Because she already said no. Madeline considered that. That's very noble. It isn't noble. Then? She told me to come back when I knew why I asked. And do you? I thought about the bike wheel. The sauce. The way Rory challenged every answer that sounded too polished. I'm getting closer. Madeline nodded. Then said something I didn't expect. You know, I used to think you asked me because you like me. I did like you. I know. She leaned against the lockers. But after what you said, I started wondering if I liked being asked for the same reason. I looked at her. What reason? Because every boy wanted me. That surprised me. Madeline smiled without much humor. It feels good to be the person everyone chooses. Then she shrugged. Doesn't mean you actually want the person choosing. There it was. No villain. No loser. Just two teenagers figuring out that attention and affection weren't the same thing. I'm sorry. She shook her head. You already apologized. Then she smiled. Just make sure when Rory finally asks why her, you don't give her some speech about how she's different from every other girl. That bad? Terrible. Noted. That night, I tested my apprenticeship dish at home. Brown butter French toast. Apples. Cinnamon. Nothing complicated. My father came into the kitchen while I was reducing the apples. He looked at the plate. This is for the application? Yeah. He frowned slightly. French toast? There it was. Not disapproval exactly. Expectation. You don't think it's impressive enough. I didn't say that. You thought it. He leaned against the counter. I just assumed you'd make something more technical. I looked at the pan. In my first life, that sentence would have changed the dish. I would have added something. Made it more elaborate. Turned breakfast into a performance. This time, I plated it. Taste it. Dad did. He chewed. Then took another bite. Well? He nodded slowly. It's good. Do you like it? He smiled. Yes. That answer felt better than impressive ever had. The next afternoon, Rory was finishing her service log when Chef Ruiz left us alone in the kitchen. She had 2 hours remaining. One more session. Then she was done. Rory signed the sheet and looked at me. You figured it out yet? I knew immediately what she meant. Why I asked you. Yes. I leaned against the counter. Partly. She folded her arms. That sounds like a bad answer. It's an honest one. Fine. I thought about the words before saying them. I asked you because I remembered you questioning something I thought I was happy about. Rory listened. And because I realized I've spent a lot of my life choosing things because they look good from the outside. Her expression changed slightly. I continued. When I came back, when I changed my mind about Madeline, I think part of me did use you as proof that I could choose differently. Rory said nothing. That wasn't fair. No. I know. She waited. But that's not why I still want you to go. Now she looked at me properly. Why do you? I smiled slightly. Because you're difficult. That is an unbelievably bad answer. You asked. Try again. Because you tell me when my answer is fake. Rory's face changed. I continued. You don't care whether something looks impressive. You care whether it actually works. Or tastes good. Or feels right. I shrugged. I like being around that. For once, Rory didn't have a joke ready. Then she asked quietly, and Madeline? What about her? She's not fake. No. You know that, right? Yes. I like that Rory asked. She didn't need another girl to be worse in order to feel chosen. Madeline's great, I said. She just isn't the point. Rory nodded once. Then she picked up her jacket. Better answer. That's all I get? For now. She walked toward the door. I smiled. Still no? Rory turned. You said you weren't asking again. I'm not. Good. She opened the door. Then paused. One more service session. Thursday. She nodded. And after that? No idea. Rory looked almost amused. Good. What? For once, you don't have a plan. Then she left. I stood in the empty kitchen staring at the door. She was right. And strangely, I liked that too. Rory's final service session was Thursday. She arrived 3 minutes early. I noticed. She noticed me noticing. Don't. What? You're about to say something. I was going to say you're early. That counts. She tied on her apron and looked toward Chef Ruiz. How many hours left? 2. Rory nodded. Then after 5:30, the school officially stops owning my soul. Chef Ruiz handed her a box of onions. Your soul can dice these first. Rory stared at the box. I knew freedom sounded suspicious. I laughed and went back to the griddle. Prom was 8 days away. The menu was locked. The food order had arrived. The service map was approved. My apprenticeship portfolio was almost complete. Everything was moving exactly the way I planned, which should have made me feel good. Instead, I kept thinking about what Rory had said. For once, you don't have a plan. She meant it as a joke. I had taken it as a challenge. That was probably unhealthy. By 4 o'clock, the kitchen smelled like onions, toasted bread, and brown butter. We were running one final speed test before actual service. Rory worked the sauce station without supervision. No extra salt. No disaster. No complaints. Mostly. You put too much mustard in this one, I said. She tasted it. No, I didn't. You did. It tastes fine. It tastes aggressive. That sounds like a compliment. It isn't. Rory took another spoonful, considered it, then added more yogurt. I smiled. What? You corrected it. Don't make this emotional. I wasn't. You had the face. What face? The proud teacher face. I'm 17. You can still be unbearable at 17. Fair. We kept working. The last test batch came out better than any of the earlier ones. Chef Ruiz lined up sandwiches, potatoes, and sauce on the stainless steel counter. She tasted everything without speaking. That was worse than criticism. Rory leaned toward me. If she hates it, I'm blaming you. You made one sauce. It's an important sauce. Chef Ruiz finally looked up. This works. I exhaled. Rory frowned. That's it? Chef Ruiz smiled. You two really do have the same problem. What problem? We asked together. She pointed at us. That. Then she looked at me. Caleb, your service plan is approved. My stomach tightened. Seriously? Yes. If prom goes well, you'll have the live service requirement complete. That mattered. A lot. For years in my first life, cooking had been something I did after the important work was finished. Now the important work was cooking. I let myself enjoy that for a second. Then Chef Ruiz looked at Rory. And you have 37 minutes of service left. Rory checked the clock. Beautiful. Chef Ruiz left to take a delivery call. The kitchen went quieter. Rory kept cleaning her station. I started stacking trays. Neither of us said much. That was unusual enough to feel noticeable. Finally Rory asked, You nervous? About prom? The food. Yeah. You hide it well. I make spreadsheets. That is not hiding. That is converting anxiety into office supplies. I laughed. Maybe. She wiped down the counter. What happens if it goes badly? I fail the service requirement. Then? I find another qualifying event. And if that goes badly? I try again. Rory stopped cleaning. I looked at her. What? You answered that fast. So? She shrugged. Nothing. I understood a second later. A few weeks ago, I would have treated one failure like evidence I had chosen the wrong future. Now it was just a bad service. Fixable. Repeatable. Not destiny. I think I'm getting better at this. At cooking? At not treating every decision like a final exam. Rory smiled slightly. Good. Then she added, your French toast still looks boring. I stared at her. You haven't even tried it. I saw the picture. It's supposed to look simple. Convenient defense. You want to taste it? She thought about that. Yes. I made one plate. Not because it was part of prep. Because I wanted her opinion. Brown butter French toast. Soft apples. Cinnamon. A little salt. Nothing fancy. I put it in front of her. Rory took one bite. Then another. I waited. She looked irritated. That good? I hate that it's good. Excellent. It tastes like somebody's house. I stopped. That was the best description anyone had given it. Not technical. Not impressive. Not competition worthy. A house. Something warm enough to remember. That's kind of the point. Rory looked at me. So this is what you actually like? Yeah. No committee answer? No. No strategy? No. She took another bite. Dangerous. I smiled. The clock hit 5:30. Chef Ruiz returned with Rory's service sheet. She checked the total. Done. Rory stared at the paper. All of it? All 12 hours. No surprise bonus punishment? Not unless you dismantle another vending machine on the way out. Rory put one hand over her heart. You don't trust me. No. Fair. Chef Ruiz signed the bottom and left the sheet on the counter. Rory looked at it longer than I expected. You okay? Yeah. You sound disappointed. I'm not. She tapped the paper. I just thought finishing this would feel bigger. Most things don't. She looked at me. That sounded 30 years old. I froze for half a second. Then shrugged. I contain wisdom. You contain spreadsheets. She picked up the service sheet. I went back to cleaning. Rory didn't leave. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. At 5:43, I finally looked over. You know you're free. I know. You can go. I know. You're staying. She gave me a flat look. Excellent observation. Why? Rory glanced at the trays. You still have cleanup. That's not your problem. I know. That answer hit differently. She took a towel and started drying pans anyway. Not because she owed hours. Not because the school assigned her. Because she wanted to stay. I didn't point it out. That would have ruined it. We cleaned in silence for a while. Then Rory said, so. I kept stacking trays. So? That invitation. I stopped. She pulled the completed service sheet from her jacket pocket. What about it? You said you weren't asking again. I'm not. Good. She took my pen off the prep clipboard. Hey. Relax. Rory flipped the service sheet over. Then wrote something on the back. She folded it once and handed it to me. I stared at her. You're giving me paperwork? Apparently that's your love language. That's upsetting. Read it. I unfolded the paper. 3 words. Prom. Yes. Underneath. Stop asking stupid questions. I looked up. Rory was suddenly very interested in reorganizing clean utensils. You said no. I changed my mind. You also said I shouldn't ask again. You didn't. So technically. Caleb. I smiled. Right. She finally looked at me. For the first time since I asked her outside the administrative office, there was no suspicion in her expression. Just nerves. Rory Keane was nervous. That might have been rarer than an apology. Why? I asked. Her eyes narrowed. You're pushing your luck. I'm serious. She looked down at the service sheet, then answered. Because the first time you asked, it felt like you wanted to make a point. I nodded. And now? Now I think you just want to go with me. That's true. She shrugged. Better. I folded the sheet carefully. Rory noticed. You're keeping that? Yes. Why? Because apparently all my important prom decisions happen on terrible stationery. She laughed. Then I asked, do you actually want to go? Rory stared at me. That is exactly the kind of stupid question I warned you about. I want to hear you say it. She rolled her eyes. Then, quieter. Yes. There it was. Not because I had rejected Madeline. Not because Rory wanted to prove anything to the school. Not because I had chased her until she surrendered. A yes she chose herself. I smiled. Okay. Okay? What do you want? Fireworks? No. Good. Budget's tight. She shoved my shoulder. I laughed. And just like that, Rory Keane became my prom date. No cafeteria audience. No giant sign. No cheering crowd. Just a completed punishment form, a clean kitchen, and the girl who had already done everything the school required choosing to stay 15 minutes longer. For some reason, that felt better than the perfect prom invitation I remembered from my first life. Prom was 3 days away when Rory almost walked out again. This time, it wasn't because of Coleman. It was because of me. We were in the culinary room running the full service sequence for the last time. Chef Ruiz had us treating the rehearsal like the real thing, timed batches, holding temperatures, volunteer rotations, clean up windows. I had the schedule taped to the refrigerator. Rory looked at it, then at me. You scheduled bathroom breaks. Yes. For everyone. Yes. That is deeply unsettling. It prevents chaos. It proves you think chaos can be negotiated with. I do. She pointed at the highlighted blocks. You color-coded potatoes. That's batch timing. You color-coded potatoes. Those are different sentences. Rory shook her head and went back to portioning sauce. The truth was, she had a point. I had planned the food station down to 5-minute intervals. Not because I was scared of cooking. I was scared of losing control. There was a difference. Chef Ruiz noticed too. She watched me rearrange the volunteer chart for the third time. Caleb. I looked up. What? Stop touching it. The second service block is too tight. It was fine 10 minutes ago. I found a better order. You found a different order. That's not the same thing. No. She folded her arms. And that is exactly why you're done changing it. I stared. Rory smiled without looking up. Chef's orders. Traitor. Recovering control freak. I wanted to argue. Then I saw the time. We had spent 20 minutes improving a plan that already worked. I took the marker out of my hand and put it down. Fine. Chef Ruiz nodded. Good. Rory glanced at me. You survived. Barely. Proud of you. That sounded sarcastic. It was. We made it through the rest of the rehearsal without disaster. Then Vice Principal Coleman appeared. Again. At that point I started wondering if he lived inside the school walls. Rory saw him and muttered, of course. Coleman carried a clipboard. Keen. She looked at him. What? He looked at her service form. Your disciplinary requirement is complete. Yes. So technically, you're no longer assigned to this station. Rory nodded. I know. He looked at Chef Ruiz. If you're keeping her as a volunteer, I need a new participation waiver on file. Chef Ruiz frowned. That's easy. Coleman continued. And because Rory has a current conduct warning, she can't remain in a food service role without staff supervision. Rory's posture changed. Here we go. She crossed her arms. So I finished the punishment, volunteered anyway, and now I need special babysitting? Coleman sighed. That is not what I said. It's exactly what you said with paperwork. Rory. I could see her anger rising. Then something different happened. She stopped herself. Not completely, but enough. She looked at Chef Ruiz. Is that actually school policy? Chef Ruiz nodded slowly. For students with an active conduct warning, yes. Rory looked back at Coleman. So this is real? Yes. Written? He turned the clipboard around. Rory read the policy. I watched her face. The old version of Rory would have argued anyway. Not because she was right. Because she hated the feeling of someone having authority over her. This time, she took a breath. Then asked, what counts as staff supervision? Coleman blinked. An assigned faculty member present during service. Chef Ruiz is already there. Yes. So what changes? Nothing operationally. We just need the form. Rory stared. Then said, fine. Coleman actually looked surprised. She took the pen. Signed. Handed it back. That's it? He checked the signature. That's it. Rory pointed toward the door. Great. Coleman almost smiled. Then left. The second the door closed, Rory turned to me. Don't. I raised both hands. I didn't say anything. You were about to. No. You have the face. What face? The annoying one. That's just my face. She laughed despite herself. Then her expression changed. You know what I hate? Coleman? Besides that. She leaned against the counter. I hate that sometimes the rule actually is the rule. That seems healthy. No, it's terrible. I smiled. Rory continued. If a rule is stupid, I know what to do. Break it? Sometimes. That explains the suspension. She ignored me. But when the rule is boring and real and I still hate it, she frowned. I don't know what to do with that. Follow it? She gave me a look. Don't ruin the moment. I laughed. But I understood. Rory wasn't becoming obedient. That would have been fake. She was learning the harder thing. Not every limit was an insult. And not every disagreement had to become a war. That afternoon, I had my final apprenticeship review with Chef Ruiz. She sat across from me with my portfolio, live service plan, menu costing, food safety log, personal dish. She flipped through everything slowly. I tried not to watch her expression. Rory had stayed behind to help reorganize dry storage, even though she no longer needed ours. I could hear boxes moving behind the shelving. Chef Ruiz stopped on the French toast page. Still keeping this? Yes. You considered changing it? Several times. Why didn't you? Because I like it. She smiled. That's the correct answer. I looked down. She continued. You know what your biggest problem is? Budgeting? No. Plating? No. Knife speed? Caleb. Sorry. You still think good choices should feel impressive. That landed. I didn't answer. Chef Ruiz tapped the portfolio. This menu is not impressive. I stared. She smiled. It's good. I understood. There was a difference. A big one. Prom is your final requirement, she said. Run the service well. Then submit. I nodded. And if something goes wrong? Something will. That reassuring? It should be. She closed the folder. If you can only cook when the plan behaves, you don't belong in a kitchen. Rory called from behind the shelves. I like her. Chef Ruiz didn't even turn. You're still alphabetizing canned goods. I stopped 10 minutes ago. Then leave. Rory appeared carrying her jacket. See? Authority. Go home. Rory smiled and left. I followed a minute later. Outside, she was waiting beside the steps. You're still here. She looked at me. I know. Waiting for someone? Yes. I looked around. Who? Rory stared. That was embarrassing for you. Oh. Yeah. I smiled. Right. We started walking toward the parking lot. Then she said, I need something. I immediately looked suspicious. Rory noticed. Relax. What? My dress. I stopped. Your dress? Prom. Yes, I understand the concept. My aunt bought one. Okay. I hate it. That sounds like your problem. It is. She nodded. I need an opinion. I looked at her. From me? Yes. Why? Because if I ask my aunt, she'll say I look beautiful no matter what. That sounds supportive. It's useless. I laughed. What kind of opinion? Honest. Dangerous. I know. She pulled out her phone. 3 photos. First dress, black, formal, expensive looking. Second, pale blue, softer than anything I had ever imagined Rory wearing. Third, deep green, simple, fitted without looking like she was pretending to be somebody else. Over it, in the mirror, she had thrown on her old leather jacket. I pointed. Third. Rory looked at the screen. Why? It looks like you. She frowned slightly. That's vague. The first looks like somebody dressed you for prom. True. The second looks like your aunt dressed you for prom. Very true. The third looks like you agreed to attend prom but refused to surrender. Rory smiled. That is accurate. The jacket stays? Yes. Obviously. She put the phone away. Good. That's all? Yes. You dragged me into a fashion consultation for 7 seconds? I wanted an unbiased opinion. That's flattering. Don't get used to it. We reached her aunt's car. Before getting in, Rory stopped. Caleb. Yeah? You know I'm not going because I owe you. I know. And not because you did all this kitchen stuff. I know. And not because you rejected Madeline. I know. She narrowed her eyes. You're very calm. I've had this speech before. Good. I smiled. Why are you going? Rory looked at me. That question made her nervous. I could tell because she put one hand into her jacket pocket, then pulled it back out. Because I like being around you. Simple. No joke. I felt something shift in my chest. Rory immediately added, don't make it weird. Too late. Caleb. I'm kidding. Mostly. She opened the car door, then looked back. And because you're less annoying when you're cooking. That is objectively false. See you Friday. She got in. I watched the car leave. And for the first time, I stopped thinking of prom as the night when I had made the wrong choice in my first life. It was becoming something else. Not a correction. Not a second attempt. A night that had never existed before. Prom Friday arrived with rain. Of course it did. The gym had been transformed with hanging lights, dark fabric, and enough decorations to make the basketball court almost unrecognizable. I barely saw any of it. At 6:30, I was in the culinary room wearing a white kitchen jacket over formal pants. No tux yet. No dance floor. Just trays. Timers. Volunteers. Chef Ruiz. My actual priority. The first batch went into warming at 8:45. At 9:05, one heating unit stopped holding temperature. I stared at the display. Chef Ruiz looked at me. There it was. The disaster. Not huge. Real. The old me would have panicked because the plan had failed. This time, I looked at the backup. Move sandwiches to oven hold. Potatoes take warmer one. Service starts 5 minutes late. One volunteer asked, "What about the vegetarian batch?" Fresh tray at opening. Small batch every 10. Everyone moved. Chef Ruiz said nothing. She didn't need to. The plan changed. The food survived. At 9:17, service opened. Students arrived faster than expected. The line doubled in 4 minutes. Rory appeared through the side door wearing the deep green dress. And the leather jacket. Of course. I forgot what I was doing for exactly 2 seconds. She noticed. That was unfortunate. What? Nothing. That was definitely something. You look good. Rory stopped, then looked down at herself. Good? Very. She stared at me. I smiled. Don't push it? She rolled her eyes. But she was smiling. Then she looked at the line. You're busy. Yes. Need help? I almost said yes automatically. Then I remembered. She wasn't assigned. She wasn't obligated. I asked, "Do you want to?" Rory looked at the serving station. Then at me. Yes. I handed her an apron. She stared at it. You're serious. You offered. She tied it over the dress. Leather jacket. Green formal dress. White kitchen apron. Rory Keane looked like she had personally declared war on prom etiquette. Perfect. She stepped beside me. What am I doing? Sauce. She smiled. Obviously. And for the next 40 minutes, my prom date worked the food station with me while everyone else danced. The strange thing was, I didn't feel like I was missing prom. For once, I was exactly where I wanted to be. By 9:40, the food station had gone from manageable to why are there this many hungry people wearing formal clothes? The line reached halfway across the side hall. One student asked if we had ranch. Another asked if the potatoes were gluten-free. A third tried to take 4 sandwiches because, according to him, prom burns calories. Rory stared at him. You are wearing rented shoes and lying to my face. He put 2 sandwiches back. I almost laughed into the warming tray. Chef Ruiz caught me. Focus. Trying. The heating unit failure had cost us 5 minutes, but after that the system held. Volunteers rotated correctly. Fresh batches came out. The vegetarian sandwiches actually moved faster than expected. Nothing was perfect. That was the weirdly good part. For months, I had been trying to build a life where the right choices produced clean results. But kitchens did not care about clean results. Neither did prom. Neither did Rory. People changed their minds. Equipment failed. Sauce went wrong. Rain soaked the decorations near the side entrance. And somehow the night still worked. At 10:02, Chef Ruiz checked the service log. 123 portions. I looked at her. That's enough? That's more than enough. My chest tightened. The live service requirement. Done. She nodded toward the line, now finally shrinking. Finish strong. I did. At 10:15, we closed service. The last sandwich went to a sophomore volunteer who looked like he might cry from hunger. I shut down the griddle. For the first time all night, the kitchen became quiet. Rory leaned against the counter. Your prom is very romantic. I looked at the stack of sheet pans. You volunteered. I made a poor decision. You're wearing an apron over a formal dress. I'm aware. You look like a very aggressive catering manager. She looked down at herself. Accurate. Then she untied the apron. Underneath, the green dress was still perfect. Mostly. A small smear of sauce marked the side near her hip. I pointed. You got mustard on prom. Rory looked down. Good. Good? Now I don't have to worry about ruining it. That was possibly the most Rory thing she could have said. Chef Ruiz came over carrying my evaluation sheet. I immediately straightened. Rory noticed. Oh no. What? You have the exam face. I do not have an exam face. You do. Chef Ruiz looked at the two of us. Do I need to come back? No. Yes, Rory said. I ignored her. Chef Ruiz checked the final temperatures, production count, waste log, and timing notes. Then she signed the bottom. Live service requirement, completed. I stared at the signature. That single line meant more to me than I expected. Not because it guaranteed the apprenticeship. It didn't. But in my first life, this opportunity had never existed because I had never taken the first step. Now I had something real to submit. Something I chose. Chef Ruiz tapped the paper. You did well. Thanks. You overplanned. I know. You recovered well. I know. You gave away control when you needed to. I looked toward the volunteers' cleaning stations. Working on it. She smiled. Good. Finish cleanup. Then she left. Rory leaned over the evaluation sheet. That's it? That's it. You cooked 123 meals in a school kitchen and all you get is a signature? It's an important signature. She nodded slowly. Fair. Then she looked toward the gym. Music drifted through the doors. The prom playlist had shifted into the last hour. Rory checked the clock. You planning to spend the whole prom back here? I have cleanup. She stared. What? Nothing. No. You have a face. She took a clean apron from the hook. I frowned. What are you doing? Helping. You already did 40 minutes. Congratulations on understanding time. You're not assigned anymore. I know. Rory. She tied the apron again. You want to dance eventually? Yes. Then clean faster. I laughed. That was apparently the answer. So we cleaned. Together. Not romantically. Not elegantly. I washed pans. Rory dried. We stacked trays. Wiped counters. Logged waste. One volunteer dropped a container lid and spent 30 seconds chasing it under a prep table. By 10:38, the kitchen looked respectable. Not perfect. Respectable. Chef Ruiz returned, inspected the counters, and pointed toward the door. Go! I looked at the last tray. Are you sure? Caleb. Right. Rory had already removed the apron. I changed into my jacket in the storage room. When I came back out, she was waiting. Not leaning against the wall like she wanted to leave. Waiting. That hit me harder than the prom invitation ever had. Ready? She nodded. We walked toward the gym. The main floor looked nothing like the cafeteria where I had first planned to ask Madeline. Lights hung low overhead. The rain outside made the windows dark. Most students were dancing or taking pictures near the entrance. A few people noticed us. More specifically, they noticed Rory. Not because she looked out of place. Because nobody expected her to be there. One guy from my history class actually stopped mid-conversation. Rory saw him. Keep walking. I wasn't doing anything. You were about to become aware of society. That sounds dangerous. It is. We made it 5 more steps before Madeline found us. She wore a dark blue dress and looked exactly like the person half the school had expected to dominate prom. She also looked genuinely happy. Not fake happy. Real. She glanced at me. Then Rory. Then the sauce stain. Madeline smiled. You worked food? Rory looked down. Apparently. You look good. Rory hesitated. Thanks. Then, surprising me, she added, you too. No tension. Again. Just 2 girls who didn't need each other to lose. Madeline turned to me. How'd the service go? Passed. Her face brightened. Seriously? Yeah. That's great. Thanks. She looked like she wanted to say more. Then stopped. Good instinct. Rory noticed anyway. What? Madeline smiled. Nothing. That means something. Madeline glanced at me. Then at Rory. Actually, yes. I braced. She said, make sure he dances. I blinked. Rory stared. Madeline continued, he spent months talking about prom like it was a strategic operation. I believe that. He will absolutely find a reason to avoid enjoying it. I also believe that. I looked between them. This feels unfair. Madeline smiled. Have fun. Then she left. Rory watched her go. She's nice. I told you. I know. You sounded surprised. I'm surprised by everyone. Healthy worldview. She looked toward the dance floor. Then at me. You dancing? Eventually. Wrong answer. What? She grabbed my wrist. Not dramatically. Just enough to pull me forward. Now. I was not a good dancer. Rory was worse. That helped. She laughed the first time I stepped on her shoe. I apologized. She said, "Don't. These shoes deserve consequences." We stayed near the edge instead of the center. That felt right. The song was too loud. People around us were shouting lyrics. Someone behind me attempted a spin and almost hit a table. Nothing about the moment looked perfect. I loved it. That realization came quietly. Not a rush. Not some dramatic rebirth revelation. Just, I actually like this. Not because everyone thought the night was good. Not because I had the girl people wanted to notice. Not because the photos would look impressive. Because I had spent half the evening cooking. Because the food station passed. Because Rory voluntarily wore an apron over her dress. Because the girl dancing badly in front of me had argued with me, corrected me, annoyed me, and still chosen to come. The song ended. Rory looked at my face. "What?" "Nothing. You're smiling weird." "I'm having a good time." She stared. That sounded suspiciously sincere. It was. Gross. I laughed. Another song started. Slower. Rory looked toward the exit. I thought she might leave. Instead, she stepped closer. "Do people do something different for slow songs?" "Yes." "What?" "Usually stand closer." "That seems inefficient." "It's not a manufacturing process." She considered that, then put one hand on my shoulder. I put mine carefully at her waist. Rory looked down at the distance between us. "This feels weird." "It does." "Good." "Why good?" "If it felt normal, I'd be worried." I smiled. "We moved badly. But slowly." That helped. After a moment, Rory said, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Was it worth it?" I froze. The room disappeared for half a second. Parking lot. Another life. Rory sitting on the hood of an old car. Was prom actually fun? Everyone said it was amazing. That's not what I asked. Same question. Different night. This time, I understood before answering. "Yeah." Rory looked at me. "Yeah? I actually like this one." She frowned slightly. "This one?" I caught myself. "Prom. Right." Her expression stayed suspicious for another second. Then she let it go. "What do you like?" I thought. "The kitchen." "That's concerning." "The food." "Expected." "The fact that nothing went exactly right." She raised an eyebrow. "That sounds new." "It is." "And?" I looked at her. "You." Rory went still. Not theatrically. Just enough that I felt it. I continued before I could overthink the sentence. "Not because you're the suspended girl." Excellent start. "Not because you're different from Madeline." Getting better. "And not because asking you proves something." Rory waited. "I like you because you make me answer the actual question." Her expression changed. There it was. No sarcasm. No defensive joke. At least not yet. Then she said, "That was dangerously close to being good." "I'll take it." She looked down. Then back at me. "I like you too." My heartbeat immediately became useless. Rory noticed. "Don't." "What?" "Make a face." "I'm not." "You absolutely are. You just said you like me." "I'm reconsidering." "No." She almost laughed. Then her hand tightened slightly on my shoulder. "I mean it." That mattered more. "So do I." For a few seconds, we just moved with everyone else. No kiss. No announcement. No people cheering because the troublemaker and the high-achieving guy had become some story for them to talk about. Just us. Exactly where I wanted to be. Later, we stepped outside because the gym was too warm. The rain had stopped. The pavement still reflected the lights from the building. Rory leaned against the brick wall. "Your apprenticeship." "Yeah? What happens now?" "I submit the portfolio." "And then?" "Interview if I make the next round." "You will." I looked at her. "That's unusually optimistic." "Don't get used to it." "What about you?" She frowned. "What about me?" "The restoration thing." Her eyes shifted. "You remembered." "Yeah." Rory looked toward the parking lot. "I talked to my uncle." "And?" "He knows a restoration shop that takes summer assistants." I smiled. "You applying?" "Maybe." "That means no." "That means I haven't decided." "Do you want to?" She looked at me. There it was again. The actual question. Then she nodded. "Yes." "So apply." Rory groaned. "You sound like yourself." "That's terrible." "I know." She smiled. Then she pushed away from the wall. "Come on." "Where?" "Back inside." "Why?" "You still owe me at least one song where you don't step on my shoes." I made no such promise. "You're learning." We went back in. And for once, I didn't think about whether this choice would still look right 10 years from now. I was done choosing my life based on how well it photographed from the future. Tonight was enough. The last song ended at 11:27. Nobody wanted to admit prom was over. Students kept taking pictures under the decorations. Someone convinced the DJ to play one more song even though the lights had already come up halfway. Teachers stood near the exits with the patient expressions of people who had spent 4 hours waiting for teenagers to accept reality. Rory and I were still near the edge of the gym. She looked at the suddenly bright room and grimaced. Everything looks worse with the lights on. That's probably why dances use low lighting. Strategic deception. Basically, her leather jacket was back on over the green dress. One sleeve had a faint smear of flour from the kitchen, and the sauce stain near her hip had dried into a small dark mark. She noticed me looking. Don't. I didn't say anything. You were thinking something. I was thinking you somehow made a prom dress look like work clothes. That is a compliment. It was. She nodded, satisfied. Around us, people started folding chairs and carrying decorations toward storage. My old instinct kicked in immediately. Help! Find a job. Make myself useful. I actually took one step toward a stack of tables before Rory caught the back of my jacket. I turned. What? You're done. They need help. They have 20 volunteers. I could still. No. I stared at her. Rory pointed toward the exit. You ran food for 123 people, cleaned the kitchen, danced badly, and survived formal clothing. Go home. That sounded almost caring. It was an order. You're not very good at denying it anymore. She let go of my jacket. Annoying. But she was smiling. And I realized she was right. There was nothing wrong with helping. The problem was believing every room needed me before I was allowed to leave it. So I looked at the volunteers. They were fine. The world did not collapse because Caleb Mercer went home. That felt embarrassingly important. We stopped outside the gym entrance. The rain had left the air cool enough that I could finally breathe without feeling like I was still standing over a griddle. Rory pulled out her phone. My aunt says she's 10 minutes away. My dad's probably already here. Neither of us moved. Prom had ended. This was usually where movies gave people a perfect final moment. A kiss under decorative lights. A confession. Something clean enough to become a memory immediately. Instead, Rory looked at my shoes. You've got sauce on those too. I looked down. Seriously? Yes. How? You work like food is attacking you personally. I laughed. Then Rory became quiet. Not uncomfortable. Thinking. You know what's weird? What? I almost didn't come. That surprised me. After you said yes? Yeah. Why? She shoved her hands into her jacket pockets. Because I kept thinking about what people would say. I raised an eyebrow. You? Don't sound so shocked. You usually act like you don't care. I usually don't. She looked through the glass doors at the students still inside. But sometimes not caring becomes another thing you have to perform. That was more honest than I expected. People were going to stare, she continued. Suspended girl shows up with the guy who publicly walked away from Madeline Cross. It sounds like somebody designed it for gossip. They did stare. I noticed. You survived. Barely. I smiled. Then she added, that wasn't why I almost stayed home. What was? Rory took a moment before answering. I thought maybe if I came, I'd be proving your first idea right. I understood immediately. That she was the rebellious alternative. The surprising choice. The girl he picked because everyone expected someone else. You weren't. I know that now. What changed? She looked at me. You spent most of prom in a kitchen. I laughed. That convinced you? A little. That's insulting. You weren't trying to show me off. Her voice became quieter. You weren't even trying to make the night look good. I thought about that. She was right. In my first life, I had spent prom constantly checking whether the night matched the picture in my head. Photos. Timing. Who saw us together? Whether Madeline was having fun. Whether everyone thought we looked good. Tonight, I had worried about holding temperatures and whether the potatoes stayed crisp. Rory continued. You asked me because you wanted me here. Then you went and did your own thing anyway. That sounds less romantic when you say it. It was actually why I liked it. I looked at her. Because I ignored you? Because I didn't become the event. That landed. For the first time, I understood why tonight felt so different. Rory wasn't replacing Madeline at the center of my life. There was no center occupied by another person anymore. Cooking mattered. My future mattered. My family mattered. Rory mattered. Those things could exist beside each other. That was what I had never understood before. I think that's why I liked it too, I said. Rory tilted her head. The food? You. She rolled her eyes. You already used that line. Still true. Lazy. I smiled, then asked, can I kiss you? That shut her up. Completely. Rory Keene, who could argue with a vice principal before breakfast, suddenly looked like I had asked her to solve calculus without numbers. I waited. That mattered. Finally she said, you're asking? Yes. That's weird. I can stop. No. She said it too quickly. I smiled. Her eyes narrowed. Don't. Not doing anything. You have the face again. What face? The unbearable one. Then she stepped forward, grabbed the front of my jacket, and kissed me before I could answer. It wasn't cinematic. Her nose bumped mine slightly. I almost laughed. She pulled back. If you laugh, I'm leaving. I wasn't going to. Liar. Maybe a little. Rory looked offended for half a second. Then she laughed too. That made the whole thing better. Monday afternoon, I submitted my apprenticeship portfolio. I did it in the culinary room. Chef Ruiz stood nearby pretending not to watch. The final file included the prom service log, menu costing, food safety records, reflection notes, and my personal dish, brown butter French toast with apples. I hovered over the submit button. The old habit came back. Maybe I should change the plating photo. Maybe I should rewrite the reflection. Maybe the dish was too simple. Maybe. Chef Ruiz tapped the counter. Caleb. I looked at her. Submit. That's very aggressive mentoring. Submit. I clicked. The confirmation page appeared. That was it. No fireworks. No guarantee. Just a completed application for something I actually wanted. Chef Ruiz nodded. How do you feel? Nervous. Good. Good? It means you care. I smiled. Then the culinary room door opened. Rory walked in carrying a paper bag. Chef Ruiz looked between us. I suddenly need to be somewhere else. That's subtle, I said. I wasn't trying to be. She left. Rory set the bag on the counter. You submitted? Yeah. And? And now I wait. She frowned. You hate that. Very much. Healthy. What's in the bag? Rory pulled out the walnut brown handle of an old saucepan. The metal was scratched. The handle had been restored. I stared. What is that? Your terrible pan. My pan? The one in the back cabinet with the loose handle. I knew exactly which one. Chef Ruiz had been threatening to throw it out for months. You fixed it? Replaced the screw, reshaped the grip, sanded the wood. I turned it over. The handle felt solid. You stole kitchen equipment. Borrowed. Does Ruiz know? Probably. That's reassuring. Rory leaned against the table. Then I noticed the envelope sticking out of her jacket pocket. What's that? She hesitated. I pointed. That hesitation means something. Annoying. She pulled it out. An application. Bennett Sons Restoration, Summer Assistant Program. I looked at her. You applied. Maybe. You are literally holding the application. I filled it out. That is generally called applying. I haven't turned it in. Why? Rory looked down. The answer came slower than usual. What if they say no? I almost gave her a speech. Something encouraging. Something clean. Then I thought about how she treated me. No fake answers. So I said, then they say no. Her eyes came up. That's inspiring. I know. And then you know. She looked at the paper. And if they say yes? You spend your summer fixing things people were ready to throw away. That made her smile slightly. I like that answer. You should. It's yours. Rory stared at the application another few seconds. Then looked toward the door. Shop closes at 5. I checked the clock. 4:18. You going? She grabbed the saucepan. Yes. Why are you taking that? Evidence. Of what? That I can fix things. She started walking. At the door, she turned. You coming? I smiled. You need me? Rory rolled her eyes. No. Then why? She looked at me. Because I want you there. Simple. Still the best answer. I grabbed my jacket. Okay. We reached the restoration shop 15 minutes before closing. Rory almost turned around twice. The second time, I stopped on the sidewalk. You can leave. She looked at me. I know. I mean it. I know. You don't have to prove anything to me. Her jaw shifted. Then she nodded. That helps. A minute later, she went inside. I stayed near the front. Not speaking for her. Not explaining her suspension. not telling the owner how talented she was. Rory handed over the application herself, showed him the repaired saucepan, answered his questions, admitted she had no formal experience, admitted she had a disciplinary record at school before he could find out somewhere else. Then she said, "I'm good at fixing old things. I'd like to learn how to do it properly." That was it. No polished speech. No hidden genius reveal. Just Rory taking responsibility for who she was and asking for something she wanted. The owner looked at the saucepan, then at her application. "Come in Saturday morning. I'll give you a trial shift." Rory blinked. "Seriously? 8 o'clock. That's early." He stared at her. Rory corrected herself. "I'll be here." Outside, she stood on the sidewalk looking stunned. I smiled. "Congratulations. It's a trial." "Yes. I could be terrible." "Yes." She looked at me. "You're very supportive. I learn from you." She laughed, then shoved my shoulder. 2 days later, Madeline passed us near the cafeteria. She noticed Rory beside me, then noticed our hands. We had started holding them without discussing it. Madeline smiled. "So it worked out." Rory looked at me. "What did?" Madeline immediately understood she had stepped into something. "Prom." Rory shrugged. "The food was good." I stared at her. "That's your review?" "Yes." Madeline laughed, then looked at me. "Was it fun?" There it was again. I smiled before answering. "Yeah." No pause. No checking what everyone else thought. "No qualifier?" Madeline asked. "No." Rory looked at me. I squeezed her hand. "I actually like this one." Rory's expression changed. This time she understood there was something more behind the answer, even if she didn't know why. She didn't ask. She just leaned slightly against my shoulder as we kept walking. And that was enough. When I woke up 17 again, I thought my second chance meant choosing the right girl instead of the wrong one. I had been wrong about that too. Madeline was never wrong. Rory wasn't some secret answer everyone else had missed. The problem had always been the question. For most of my first life, I asked, what choice will look best when everyone sees it? Prom changed because I finally asked something simpler. What do I actually want? I wanted to cook. I wanted to apply. I wanted to spend time with a girl who annoyed me enough to make me answer honestly. Rory wanted restoration work. She wanted to stop turning every rule into a personal war. And, apparently, she wanted me. None of those choices were guaranteed to become perfect. That was fine. Perfect had never been the point. A week after prom, I still had Rory's completed service sheet folded inside my backpack. On the back, in her uneven handwriting, "Prom." Yes. Stop asking stupid questions. I probably should have thrown it away. Instead, I kept it, because for once, the answer on the page belonged to the person who wrote it. And so did mine. That's all for today. Remember to subscribe and support us.